Hi, I'm Mike Cohn, and welcome to another edition of TAPinto Westfield's podcast series. Today we're with Fraidy Reiss. She's the director and founder of Unchained at Last, and it helps women escape forced marriages. Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
I'd like to start first. When I called your office yesterday, I noticed the number was 908-481-HOPE. Why do you have that phone number?
We're the only organization with this mission in the United States, the only organization that helps women and girls to escape forced marriages and rebuild their lives. So for these women and girls, we are finally a source of hope.
So can you elaborate a little bit more on what your organization does?
Yeah, so we have a two-prong approach. First, it's direct services to the women and girls who are affected by forced marriage, whether that means they are facing an impending forced marriage or have already been forced into a marriage. And we provide comprehensive wraparound services, always for free, often life-saving services, to help them not only get out of their bad situation, but also to rebuild their lives. Everything from planning an escape to getting them free legal representation and helping them get into college or into ESL classes, whatever it is that they need. At the same time, we also advocate for social policy and legal change to end forced and child marriage in America.
And what made you start an organization like this?
Well, it's really my own personal experience. My family arranged my marriage for me when I was 19. It turned out to be an abusive marriage from the first week, and yet I was trapped in that marriage for 15 years because of how difficult it is, often in communities that practice arranged and forced marriage. Very difficult for a woman especially to get divorced. And so when I finally managed to escape, my family shunned me. They consider me and my daughters dead. But we rebuilt our lives, and I realized when I finally felt like my life was back in order, I thought I want to help other women who are going through what I went through.
You say your life is back in order. What is it like now, since for you and your daughters, after having gone through that entire process?
Well, 10 years later, I can say that I feel like I've rebuilt my life and that things are, we found a new normal. It was a terrifying and lonely journey, though. It took a really long time to recover from being shunned by my family. It also took a really long time to figure out the outside world after having grown up in a very insular religious community with very little contact with the outside world. It took a while to become financially independent at age 32. And emotionally independent, and happy to report that a decade later I can finally say I feel like I've gotten there.
This is obviously a big problem, and very obviously you started this organization because very few women can escape this. Why were you able to be one of the few to able to escape it and now start this organization to help others?
I wish I knew the answer to that. People often ask me that because you want to know what that ingredient is so that you can hand it to other women in a bad situation to help them to get out. And I honestly don't know. I think I was just in a desperate situation where I felt that my life was in danger, my children's lives were in danger, and I realized if I didn't get out, nobody was going to help me get out, and we could pay the ultimate price. So I'm not sure what it is that gave me the strength to get out of that, where so many women struggle with that. But I'm glad, though, to be there for other women who do have the strength and the courage to leave and just need that little extra support while they're doing it. I'm really honored to be able to be that support.
Part of your talents, you got a degree from Rutgers in journalism, and you became a reporter. And I imagine you use your reporting skills because you've written bills and laws, and you're trying to change how the law works in terms of this area.
Yeah, I think reporting skills help in every area of life. Being able to ask the right questions, being able to write coherently on complex subjects, being able to figure out complex topics and summarize them, and being a little bit of a pain in the ass. All of that comes in handy in a lot of different areas of life, and certainly has been helpful in terms of writing the legislation, talking to legislators, educating the public and policymakers about forced and child marriage.
What bills and what laws have you written? And currently, I know Governor Chris Christie is been in the news regarding this area.
Well, previously there was a bill that I wrote to help domestic violence survivors obtain restraining orders against their abusers, and that bill passed unanimously in both houses of the legislature, and Governor Christie did sign it into law several years ago. More recently, I'm working on legislation not only in New Jersey but in multiple other states to end child marriage or marriage before 18, which is a human rights abuse that primarily affects girls with devastating consequences. And in New Jersey, the bill that I helped to write, A3091, passed overwhelmingly in both houses of the legislature. It would just end marriage before 18. Currently, there are two exceptions in our law that allow marriage before 18. It would have eliminated those archaic and really problematic exceptions and reserved marriage for adults, those who have reached the age of 18. And yet, even though this bill is common sense legislation that would have eliminated a human rights abuse and protected girls, and even though there was nobody through months of hearings who testified against these bills, and even though it passed overwhelmingly in both houses of the legislature with strong bipartisan support, Governor Christie last week, in a shocking move of either a shocking act of either ignorance or malice or both, conditionally vetoed that bill.
Did he mention anything in a statement why he did that?
He did. He said that his reason was that he didn't want that this bill to end child marriage somehow would not comport with religious customs in the state of New Jersey, and that's an absolutely ridiculous statement to make.
Is there any examples of other than, you gave a personal example of yourself, of other people who've been affected by child marriages and the way it's tied into religion?
Well, here's the thing, it's not tied into religion. We see several reasons that parents will force their children into marriage, and one of them is custom. That's usually more cultural than religious. But even if it were religious, I can tell you that, first of all, the U.S. Supreme Court has upheld laws that incidentally forbid an act required by religion, as long as they don't target religious practice. This bill in no way targets religious practice, and I'll say it again, I don't know of any religion that requires child marriage. Religions, if you think about it, they tend to describe marriage as an important, even holy union between two willing partners. That's not child marriage. Child marriage often is forced, so these are not two willing partners. Child marriage almost always ends in failure. Between 70 and 80% of marriage before 18 ends up in failure, studies show. So, this bill is really entirely consistent with modern religious views, and in fact, clergy members from many different faiths came out in strong support of this legislation.
So the religion, it's not really about the religion, it's more, there's some cultures or customs that are revolving around the religion, but it's not specifically the religion, and that's where Governor Chris Christie, tried to tie it into.
Right, and it's not even always culture around religion. Sometimes it's purely culture, and then we've seen other reasons completely unrelated to tradition that parents will force their children into marriage. For example, control. We've seen many times where parents want to control a child who's wild or comes out as LGBTQ, or a girl who gets pregnant. That parents use marriage as a way to kind of get a grip on that. And we've also seen often it's money. There's a bride price or a dowry that changes hands, completely unrelated to religion. And but again, even if this were somehow done in the name of religion, that's not legitimate. And we have, constitutionally speaking, we have the right to to limit actions that are so-called required by religion if we're not targeting religious practice, and we have here good reason to do it. This is a human rights abuse. To allow it in the name of religion or culture makes no sense.
In terms of New Jersey, is it prevalent now? Like, what are the current numbers, and what is the situation involving this child marriage in New Jersey at this time?
It's shockingly high rate of child marriage here in New Jersey. Between 1995 and 2012, that was the time frame for which we were originally able to retrieve the data, and that showed in just that time period almost 3,500 children as young as 13 were married in New Jersey. And one of the when Governor Christie vetoed the bill, it was a conditional veto, and he said he would allow the bill to pass if legislators allowed an exception for 16 and 17-year-olds to marry with judicial review. Well, you know what? We've long had judicial review in the state of New Jersey. It's a ridiculous, the judicial review process is not at all strong enough to protect children from forced marriage or to mitigate the many harms and consequences of marriage before age 18. And in fact, if you look at the data that we retrieved from the State Health Department, between 2000 and 2014, judges in New Jersey approved nearly 60 marriages of girls to older men with an age difference that constitutes statutory rape. That is the judicial review process that we've had in place until now in New Jersey for children 15 and younger. And this flawed judicial review process that has been shown to be an abject failure is the one that Christie now wants to use for 16 and 17-year-olds who, by the way, statistics show us are at the age where they're at the highest risk of being forced into a marriage. He wants to use this flawed process that allowed children as young as 13 to be raped to now apply that to 16 and 17-year-olds. Shame on you, Governor Christie.
It must feel, on a personal level, very good for you to have been able to establish this.
It is tremendously healing to be able to take your own trauma and turn it into a way to help others. And there's no way that I'm going to let Governor Christie, America's least favorite governor, to stop me.
And in terms of the future for your organization, what do you see it going? And I know you have there's a protest that you've organized in June. What can you talk about the future and your hopes for your organization in the future?
Well, in the immediate future, it's pushing back against Governor Christie. The legislature has never overridden one of his vetoes in 8 years, but this is the time to do it. So we're organizing on June 1 a chain-in in Trenton, where we're going to wear bridal gowns and veils and chain our arms and tape our mouths to protest not only child marriage, but also to protest Governor Christie's ridiculous love for child marriage and his refusal to accept the legislature's decision to end child marriage. At the same time, on the same day, we're also organizing walkouts at high schools in New Jersey. We're hoping to get high schools across New Jersey to join us. And at the same time as the chain, and if they can't make it to Trenton, the high school students, the ones who are personally affected by Governor Christie's horrible conditional veto, to get up and walk out of their classrooms and take a stand and tell Governor Christie we're not accepting this. And then beyond that, we plan to continue growing. We're a national organization already. We're a tiny little staff based right here in Westfield, New Jersey, and we need to grow and continue meeting the ever-increasing demand. Now that women and girls are finding out about us and reaching out, a lot more of them, we need a larger team to be able to meet the needs. And we have, in addition to New Jersey, 49 other states where we need to end child marriage. Right now, marriage before 18 is legal in all 50 states. And in fact, in 27 states, like in New Jersey, right now, there is no minimum age below which a child cannot marry.
How do people find out about you if they need their help? How do they go about normally seeking you out?
A lot of our clients find out about us through word of mouth, through a Google search, or through a referral from a friend or a sister who has already been in contact with us.
And in closing, when the protest, on June 1st, you have other protests. How have they normally gone? What have been the result of these protests, and how many have you had around the country or in New Jersey?
We've done several chain-ins. This is the second one in New Jersey. We did one outside Newark Penn Station last summer, and more they're getting larger crowds and more media attention. Obviously, the idea of a crowd of people wearing bridal gowns and veils and chains is compelling, and so it really helps to raise awareness. Passers-by stop and want to know what's going on, and we can educate them, and then people read about it in the news. And so even, if we get a group of 30, 40 people to gather, that's great, but then it's the ripple effect of the people walking by and the people who read about it, and it's had a really positive impact in the past.
And you've been doing a lot of media work yourself, newspapers, print, this podcast, I heard you on NPR and television, and how has that helped to move your organization forward?
Every little bit helps. one of the biggest problems we have is just public awareness. Most people still don't know that child marriage is a significant problem in the United States. Our groundbreaking research here at Unchained at Last showed that between 2000 and 2010, in just 38 states that track marriage age data, more than 167,000 children as young as 12 years old were married. Almost all of them were girls married to adult men, like here in New Jersey, where most of the children married are girls married to adult men. Most Americans still don't know that. So every little news story, every little bit helps, and of course every large news story as well. And just in terms of making the public aware, and the more awareness we have, the more support we have for legislation to stop this.
That was Fraidy Reiss on our TAPinto Westfield podcast series. Fraidy is the founding director of Westfield-based organization Unchained at Last, which helps women escape forced marriages. I'm Mike Cohen, and I hope you'll join us for another podcast. Thank you.